I was.
Good evening, guys, and welcome to episode 7 of Mentors Off Script. Let's dive straight in. So I want to paint a scenario for you guys. It is the end of the world, okay? Either there's been some nuclear war that's taken out everyone, there's a meteorite hitting the earth, there's a global warming situation, but the situation is such that unfortunately we are down to the last 100,000 people and we are moving to Mars. We are going to recolonize Mars, and this is the last 100,000 people left. Now, in regards to these 100,000 people, they are just normal average people with no exceptional ability. However, we have a choice of 10 different professions that we want to take over, and we can only take 3. Okay, so before we get started, I just want to welcome the panelists. As always, we have Minde, Reese, Alice, Peter, and Myrish. Welcome, guys.
Hi, guys.
So we are moving to Mars. We have to choose how we are going to rebuild civilization, in what image are we going to build it in, and these are the 10 professions that you can see at the top of the screen, but we can only take 3. So I'm just going to give you a quick little rundown on them. Doctors, I think for the obvious reason of healthcare, being able to provide healthcare. Teachers, to perhaps rebuild, the schools and the teachings for children growing up. Politicians, which I'll get to later and explain in a bit more detail, but just the politician is someone who's able to, lead large groups of people, create policies that potentially should benefit the nation. Biologists, simply because I saw the film The Martian 3 weeks ago. Anyone seen that, by the way, just here in this
Brilliant
group?
film. Absolutely
Yeah,
brilliant film.
and he pretty much only survived because of his biology skills and being able to replant and grow potatoes on Mars. 5 religious leaders, because that means a lot to some people. 6 construction experts, people that are able to actually build things, whether it be schools, buildings, or hospitals, or whatever you see in your vision of this new civilization. 7 spiritual leaders, and the reason why this is here is maybe you're looking for a completely new way of humanity living, and you're not trying to rebuild what we had on Earth with the rat race and money. Maybe you don't want any money, any kind of bartering tool, and people just live this life of Zen, kind of the way Buddhist monks live in the Tibetan mountains, and you just do things for the good of each other. 8 historians, again, not to teach history, but these people are well versed in what's happened in the past, and perhaps they can teach things that we can learn from so we don't make the mistakes going forward. 9 is physicists, because we are obviously living in the universe now, in Mars, and we need to have people who understand how things, the science of how things actually operate on these other countries, whether it be the gravity, whether it be the air, whether it be X, Y, and Z. And 10 is psychologists, and the reason why I stuck that in there as well is I assume there will be some emotional, mental trauma of the fact that the world that we know just died, and 100,000 people have just been relocated to Mars, and that would naturally come with a bit of mental, emotional trauma, and having the weight and the responsibility of rebuilding humans again on a different planet would naturally come with its downsides as well. And these guys are there to basically help that. So naturally, it's quite easy to make an argument to take all 10. But the idea is that we can only choose 3 based on what version of the world that you want, okay? So before I even start sharing mine, we're going to start off with Alice, okay? Alice, I want you to choose your number one that you thought of when you saw this list, that in my world, I cannot live without that profession, that particular skill, shall we say.
Yeah, that's a really tricky one, because I went back and forth, and I changed my mind so many times. But definitely one of the top, of my priorities would be a physicist. I think obviously moving to Mars or to any other different universe or planet, it will involve the ability of rediscovering, keep on discovering. So I think Just because the humans would have the opportunity to move to a new planet, it does not mean they know everything about it. The same way as humans have been dominating and living on planet Earth for years, it does not mean we still know everything. We still don't know everything, right? So I think, one of my top priorities would be to take a physicist or physicists, people who are well trained in that area. That's my number one, let's say.
Okay, interesting. So again, just so we understand what's happening there, in case there's all the physics laws, we need to know how to deal with it basically and live, because we can't just walk around and breathe and jump. And if you jump too high, are you lost from the planet basically? Reese, give me one as well.
I'll give you. Do you know what this? This is probably the one that's taken me the longest time to actually go through. I did so much research on all of them because they all make a valid point. But one of the ones that I chose, which I think is a very, very important one, is biologists. Purely for the fact, just like you said, Martian, brilliant film, by the way. Things like crops, understanding, just the whole understanding the manner of living things and the planet itself. Again, though, would they understand Mars? We don't know, but understanding Earth is obviously something they can do. A lot of things as well, things like viruses, illnesses. The study that microbiology has for viruses and things like that. That's probably why I chose those as my number one. Is being biologists.
So Reese, why don't you carry on? Give me your second one as well.
Give my second one, cool. Second one, second one is doctors. Second one is doctors, purely for the fact that I just believe, wherever you went, if the world restarted, even if it was on planet Earth and there was no doctors, it'd be a pretty harsh way of living. That's why I chose doctors anyway. But I feel, not saying that other ones aren't as important, but I do kind of have my counteracts for the reasons I didn't choose the other, but doctors basically.
So right now I can see you're building a world, right, where these 100,000 people can potentially eat.
Yep.
And their current health can be taken care of.
Yep.
Cool. So give me the third one then.
Third one is
round off the picture.
Construction experts.
Okay.
Again, I chose those more to counteract the other ones. Like even this, let me just give you an example. Things like teachers. Teachers are obviously very, very important. But where would they teach? There'd be no homes. There'd be no place for people. There'd be no hospitals. There'd be no. I mean, I don't know if there'd be hospitals in Mars. There might be a different kind of scenario out there, but there'd be no foundations whatsoever. And I believe that's why construction work would be probably. I was kind of deciding between those two, either.
But what are we building, Reese? Are we building? I mean, outside of homes, hospitals, are you building banks? Are you building shops? Are you building? What are we building? Office space?
Very exactly, yeah. Let's not talk about office space.
Homes for people to live in.
Home, yeah. It just
outside of homes and hospitals, I said.
Okay. For every single one of those 10. So
schools.
For historians, where would they work? For physicists, where would they work? For psychologists, where would they do their practice? For doctors, where would they be able to help people? Teachers, where could they teach? You can't. I mean, you could, but it'd be very, very difficult in a whole new planet, a whole new world that we're living in with different. I mean, I've never been to Mars, but Mars will obviously be very, very, very different compared to Earth, and without being built into somewhere, are we going to have to walk around with mind blank here?
Helmets.
I was thinking of a better word for helmets. I was going to go for helmets. I'm pretty sure there's a specific word for it. But are we going to have to live our life in helmets for the rest of our life? Or are construction workers going to be able to actually build something that we can go live and take our helmets off and go live and teach without helmets and go, perform surgery without helmets? What happens if someone has brain damage? How are you going to take the helmet off? And
how would you perform surgery on somebody who's in a full suit if you can't take it off? That'll be
even if it wasn't a full suit, Minde, let's say someone falls over, cracks their head open.
They can't because they have a helmet.
Let's say they crack the helmet and the helmet pierced their skull. How are you going to perform surgery on them? Because there'll be nowhere to do it.
this construction expert that's building this safe zone, basically, where you can take your
safe
suit
environment.
off.
Yeah.
How are they doing that without Alice, his physicist, in there to explain the pressure of gravity and oxygen and things like that?
100%. Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, that's why I thought this is probably the one I've been most excited about, because I've got an
This will
argument for
take me
every
as
single
well, isn't
10.
it, Rhys? That's why.
And Alice. I mean, to be fair, Alice, I think we'd all take you if there was 11 and we could have 100,000 Alices. I think we'd just be sorted. To be fair,
Man, I'll be biologist if you're going.
I'm going to try. I'm just going
true.
to try and basically poke holes in basically what you guys are saying. So, Rhys, I can see you've got this world now where people's current health is taken care of.
Yep.
People can eat, in the present tense, and buildings will get built. What's the long-term plan, though? This is all very present moment. Where are you taking this?
I think to talk about long term when the world has just ended is probably
That's
not
your job.
I know, but I think the whole thing we're talking
You're
about right
president
now,
of the recolonization.
I
Rhys
think
Maguire,
me
Squire.
as Mr. Maguire, presidency of Mars. I think the whole thing, and I think number one priority at the moment would be survival, and that's the main reason I chose those, because again, the others, as you said, long term, would we be out of luck without spiritual leaders or without physicists and stuff like that? Probably yes, but would we be more stuck in my eyes without the three that I chosen from the get-go? I do believe so.
Okay. Alice, I'm going to come back to you. If we could go for your second and third one as well. So we've got a world where
Yeah, of course. So
physicists are there.
actually, my second and third, funny enough, are identical to Rhys's. So I would definitely choose. There you go. That's why I said we will go together, and if we have a biologist among those ones, we should be doing fine. But yeah, no, I would definitely take doctors as well, because I'll tell you why for me doctors is second, and then construction is construction experts are third. Or anyways, they're not necessarily in my head. They're all equally important, to be fair. With doctors, for example, I think they could replace to a certain extent psychologists, for example, because I know doctors do study a bit of psychology, and actually when dealing with different people with different illnesses, whether it's mental illnesses or physical, they do have to use psychology. And more and more and more, I think nowadays, you get taught that in uni, and you have to become a good psychologist, in order to become a great doctor, because people have to be relaxed when they talk to you in order to tell you what they have, and so on and so forth. So there you go. For me, a doctor, replaces a psychologist as well. At the same time, it replaces a little bit of biologists, because even though obviously it's not quite the same thing, they do study some stuff at some point similarly. I mean, depending on what type of doctor. Obviously, some people probably would disagree with me. But I think they would have a little bit more knowledge, in terms of biology, I think. And then, for example, with construction experts, I think as well, to go down the same route as Rhys said, obviously we do need to have places where we live. We do need to have some sort of education places. I guess we do need to have some places where people can meet up. And if we can meet up, to maybe create some new cultural event, or maybe entertaining, then we can choose our own sort of religious leaders and whatever, spiritual leaders and politicians, because a doctor can be a good politician too. I mean, or construction expert can be a good politician, can be a good spiritual leader. I mean, who can say? Do you know what I mean? I don't believe you have to study some of those things in school in order to be great at it. I think you have it within you. And I generally believe some people are born with a certain passion for people who does not have to be studied in school necessarily. Whereas construction experts, doctors, physicists, you really have to have a solid empirical, if that's a word. I'm getting a little bit too deep in here, but yeah, you have to have some sort of an empirical background and logical background, isn't it, in order for you to be able to have that as a profession. So yeah, that's what I would do, and I would definitely build a lot of parks and areas where people could feel very comfortable. They could meet, they could socialize. Obviously, talking a little bit about the lockdown as well, we definitely, most of us agree that we missed socializing. Most people missed having, the chance to socialize and to interact with people. And I think going, like Rhys said, to a different planet where, and like you, Vishal, mentioned as well, and I really liked your point about psychologists, because literally before the show, I crossed off psychologists, because I really thought, you know what, you do need to have some really strong-minded people in there, because some people would go through certain traumas. But then I thought, well, a doctor should be able to kind of pick up some of that trauma, through some of their basic studies that they probably would have had in uni, I guess, or in PhD or
So,
masters or anything what they would have done. So yeah.
so Alice, I've got a question for you and Reese then, right? And just a very simple one. This is obviously there's obvious good points for the three you've taken, right? And I'm sure we'll hear some other points later about why they want to take other ones. Who's leading this recolonization? Is there a leader in your view of this new world? Who's running shit basically in this?
Do you know
place?
what,
Alice
to
will share
add to that?
responsibility.
Yeah, I think we'll
Yeah.
make a good team. Um,
And if you had to choose someone or one group of people to run it, because relying on perhaps humans to self-govern, I mean, this is probably the reason we're in this position in the first place, where we've, basically screwed up the current world we live in and are now living on Mars. So who's running this, if at all anyone?
the thing is, again, one of the main reasons why I chose, not just for survival, like they said, because I think when you say doctors, construction experts, and physicists is obvious. I think everybody from, the rest of, the panelists together with the audience can clearly understand why a doctor would be good, why a construction expert, and why a physicist. But I also, one thing, that struck me as well is the fact that these three categories of jobs or people, they're very logical type of people. So I don't necessarily believe that they would need somebody to run them. Because I think if we take people who are more religious leaders or politicians or even historians, I think there will be a little bit more. These are the type of people who can be run more by emotion sometimes, right? I mean, I'm a language teacher by profession myself, for example, and I do admit, I can be quite emotional at times, although everybody can be, I guess. But I think people who are more inclined towards, sort of, I don't know, not very logical or empirical type of jobs can be very, very emotional. And I don't believe they would be always great to run such an amazing project, to take us to the other side. I would rather have people who are more based on logic, on facts. And this way, I think we'll avoid conflicts, for example. That's my opinion. And I think humans would have a very good foundation. Now, long term, I think other categories of people will evolve from these ones. And I think the natural course of the society will take course. But I think to start with, I would rather be led, by a group of people who, is led by logic and facts.
Cool.
So that's my point of view.
And-
Reese, how about you? What do you think?
Quick one, Reese.
Oh, sorry.
To be fair, I'll make it very, very quick because you've just said everything I basically would have said. I do totally agree. If I had to pick from that group of who I believe...
Alice has chosen her three and she's like, I'm gone
She's
now.
off.
I'm
was
jumping
like,
on
Alice,
my rocket. I'm
where's
jumping
my
on my
backup
rocket.
here?
Let's go,
Reese
Elon.
agreed with everything I said. Sounds good.
Yeah, I'll meet
yeah.
you there.
Done my job.
But yeah, I think for me, I believe the question was, out of the three I chose, which one would I choose to become a leader, right?
No. The question is, you don't have a leader.
Okay,
So
cool.
I'm asking who's running it, or in your version of this new world, is there a leader at all?
I believe having a leader is super important. Anything you do, I believe the world in this scenario would have ended a lot sooner without leadership or without some. I mean, regardless whether we agree with who's in power, who's not in power, or power whatsoever, I believe people need to be in power, and there needs to be some sort of judgment on what people do and some sort of pathway to follow for things to run successfully. So I do believe there should be a leader. Now, I mean, I think we'd all say we would probably be the best leader, or else we wouldn't be speaking highly of ourselves, and I do believe that's probably the best option. But from there, again, just like Alice said, I believe like the rest of them is something that can. Now, I'm talking quite wide range here, but the rest of them is something that can be taught or something that can be learned.
The thing is about the teaching and the learning. We got to assume that with all 10, right?
We do, but without doctors, I believe it would take a much longer period of time to learn anything to do with the human body, or to learn how to do with breathing on Mars or anything like that. But I probably wouldn't even choose doctors to be the leaders. If I'm honest, it'd be more biologists, because I think that's the main source for survival.
All right, I'm gonna move on to Minde and Peter now. So we'll do like alternatively one by one. So let's start with you, Peter. Give me one and your reason why.
I was gonna steal Minde's one, but I wouldn't get doctors. I'll just get biologists, because biologists know a lot about like how to treat bodies and animals and humans and everything. I studied that in biology, like how my body works, so surely they know. And I'm sure like a lot of doctors need to learn biology. So I think biologists would be doing good enough job at the beginning.
So Pete, on that note, so biology obviously encompasses way more than the crops that we were talking about, right? It also includes human body, which we know. But Alice and Peter, Reese, the first time I got it right. They're saying that perhaps that's a doctor, which obviously is the study of the human body, is something that might take longer to learn. But you're saying a biologist can overlap that.
No, they know that. Like, to be a doctor, you have to know biology about human body. A biologist knows biology about everything. So, like, not in
plants,
depth
animals, and humans.
And humans, yeah. Not as in depth in making surgeries, I guess. Like, but hey, if you need to make some surgeries, man, you need to lose some people. It's just how it is, right? But it's more important to get, like, just pick one that hits more of the points. So that's one of them I'll pick instead of doctors, actually. And I have two more, but yeah.
Yeah, Binde, do you want to give your first one?
You go for it, Pete, if you want, because I want to give my three because they don't work without
together.
each other. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Cool. Go on,
because to see
Peter.
the whole picture.
Perfect. So yeah, the second one would be spiritual leaders. And I think reason is because spiritual leaders know a lot about our psychology and know a lot about human in terms of not only spiritual, but how the brain works. Because a lot of that, it's included in being a psychiatrist or whatever, right? Psychologist, yeah? Is that what? Yeah. So I think they know a lot about it. Plus they're leaders, so they can actually lead people into better themselves, because that's kind of their job, right? Not religious leaders, but spiritual leaders. And and I'll pick construction, because, you know, in terms of like, construction, is because you have to like figure some weird way out to live in Mars. Like, it's not going to be the same. It's not like I can build the tent and that's it. It has to be something a bit more, safe. But that's those three. And in terms of, just want to answer that question, because it's a very interesting question, who's going to run it? I think I'll probably like make a parliament of all three, because they all know their own side of the matter, and for me they're most important. So I'll be the president and they'll be my parliament. I'll be the queen, they'll be the parliament. Put it that way, yeah.
It's a good idea.
So it was biologists, spiritual leaders, and construction experts.
Yeah.
What, again, based on the fact that you're bringing spiritual leaders and the reason that I gave for spiritual leaders, what are you building? Are you envisioning this brand new world where they live in a very Zen sort of way, or is it you rebuilding the world we used to have?
Yeah, a little bit more Zen, a little bit more. It's going to be slower, so I think it wouldn't be, so many things wouldn't happen to your brain. So it will be slower, so you get to learn a little bit about yourself a little bit more. We'll be able to develop different things. But yeah, it's probably going to be a bit more Zen. Definitely be a bit more Zen. I mean, what would you do? You have to be a bit Zen.
There's 100,000 people on the planet. What would you run? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's funny, actually? Yeah, actually, technically, Peter said exactly. It was quite funny how Reese said, like Alice said exactly the same, and Peter picked the same things. What I would do for very similar reasons, actually. The only thing when I say construction experts, I probably would either construction experts I'll change to the physicists, or I would just call a word engineers. Okay, because engineers, engineers, when you're learning engineering kind of thing, right, you're learning mostly physics anyway. Well, that's what I understand. I might be actually completely wrong, right? Because what I'm trying to do, what Peter just said, like, I'm trying to cover everything. For example, what he said before.
One branch, they learn one branch of physics, but not.
No, but in the beginning, like, I studied politics, okay, so I don't need politicians in there. No, I'm just joking, right? But the point is, first 2 years in uni, you learn basic stuff, you know what I mean? So if you're studying engineering, you're learning a lot of maths, a lot of physics, and then you pick whether you want to be mechanical engineer, whether you want to be civil engineer, which will be more construction. But I do think that what I'm trying to do is just cover the whole thing. So if you have biologists and doctors, and I forgot what else was there from Reese and Alice, biologists, doctors, and who else was there? Construction works as well, right? Yeah. So of course, what I'm thinking, first of all, my first pick, I wouldn't take maybe a spiritual leader on its own, but maybe I would actually. If I had to go somewhere on my own and pick one person, it's better be spiritual leader, right? Because in a sense that actually this dude is completely connected to everything, right? And depending how you look at spiritual leaders, right? So I would probably, if I say physicists, but I don't mean physicists just sort of Newtonian physics, like just basic physics and buildings, whatever. Because technically, when you talk about engineers, it is actually mostly physics, isn't it? But if we was to go a little bit, not to get into just too deep into quantum physics, because actually real physicists should understand energies as well, right? So, and a lot of your energies, I think, of your body really, really helps your body, which I'm not sure if you can replace a doctor, but to a certain degree you can, because your body is way more energy than it's actually, a body, if that makes any sense, right? So energetically you could heal and actually do a lot of more things than actually just physically, well, I don't know, let's say operating only, right? So the reason why I would pick biologists, because I do believe, like what Peter said as well, biologists learn biology of all the animals and plants and stuff like that. So in case if I do need to, let's say, to deal with the health, biologists understand the inner body of a human, inner body, like the same as animal. We all have specific things. So I think biologists could cover doctors, but doctors couldn't cover biologists. Doctor would not know how to, grow potatoes from nothing, but biologists would. But at the same time, biologists should understand, okay, when you have a flu or whatever, because they understand the living beings kind of thing. So I would try to take a bit more rounded people than very specific people, And then I would say what you call construction workers or engineers or maybe physicists. So those people, if you know physics, you should be able to build buildings. And if you know physics, you would understand electricity, you would understand energy. So you should be able, and the more important thing as well, how are we kind of commuting in there? What type of, cars we're going to have or whatever that was going to be, around there. So, it's going to be different. So I think physicists, what's that? Yeah, running around Mars, right? So I think people who understand physics or engineering, they should be able to help with building houses and creating some sort of, cars or whatever that would be around. And I think spiritual leaders, I think for me too, would replace mostly psychologists, a lot of doctors, because I think majority of our illnesses are due to stress kind of thing. And when I'm talking about spiritual leader, I don't talk about, like you said, Vishal, like a person says, Zen, I don't need anything. Actually, spiritual leaders, that sounds like my kids, isn't it? I can hear them in my thing, So I think, and actually, funny enough, right now, I'm listening to Eckhart Tolle again, The Power of Now. I picked it up after like 2-3 years, It's just so powerful, and I'm thinking, wow, if people would be, what you say, a bit more Zen kind of thing, a bit more kind of connected, I would understand to love and take care of each other kind of thing, and not to go too deep into it. I think a lot of illnesses wouldn't even be there. And I think a lot of what we call spiritual leaders really understand the energy of a human being, which kind of connects with physicists, like with quantum physics kind of thing, right? You know what I mean? So I think that's a very, very powerful thing. And I think biologists are necessary, for survival. So if that makes any sense. So for me, the physicist should actually be as well a construction worker and an engineer and be able to build a car for me because he knows physics. Biologist should be able to deal with my physical body and plants and creating gardens and whatever we want to do kind of thing, in there. And spiritual leader should be able to deal with our psychology and our well-being, mental well-being, which I think this world is completely messed up to a certain degree, right? You know what I mean? So I think I would be able to cover that way, the all parts. And about teachers, I think if biologists can teach, you don't have to be a teacher to teach. Biologists can teach biology and plants and how the actually organisms grow. Physicists can teach physical laws and stuff like that. And of course, physical laws on Mars will be different as well, right? And a spiritual leader can actually, guide us through, love and taking care of each other and feeling, good about each other without any egos and shit like that. I think we should be okay. That's just my plan. But it's kind of the same what Peter just said, so I'm
Can I just say quickly as well of how fitting Minday's t-shirt is for this whole scenario that we're doing?
The future is now.
The future is now.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm tapping wrong, it's like upside down.
Minday the politician, the future is now.
It's true.
So, Myrish,
It's only now.
apart from copying my top colour today, are you also?
I was
let's
waiting.
see if you're gonna,
I was waiting who's going to make the first punch today. But
yeah. Let's see your three, and then I'll go through my three, and then
okay, cool. Right.
we'll go through it.
So let's look at this. So if I was going to base it, I was going to base it on you're in a completely new environment, completely new planet. So there's a
Well done, you've got the grasp.
There's a theory. There's a theory called Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Go on.
Yep.
And in that
Here
theory,
we go.
and in that theory, it's like, what is the most crucial things that's needed for our race to continue? And obviously, in that theory, there's two big categories. First, which is your physiological needs and your safety needs, which is basically air,
Biology,
food, water, health, shelter. And then after that, it goes into love and companionship and belonging and all that sort of stuff. So, in theory, we can talk about. I heard a few points get mentioned here. Heard Vishal, you making some points to Reese about who's going to lead it or who's going to lead the society, and I could see you're digging on the I don't know, like politician vibe or like some sort of leadership vibe needed in that group. But at the end of the day, even if I was to compare it to business that I have today, like, yeah, I'm trying to grow, I'm trying to open multiple businesses. In order for me to open multiple businesses, I need to have one business that's successful, and especially in the industry I'm in sales. In order for that business to be successful, I need to be able to know how to sell. Like, I need, like, that the basic need needs to be there. In order to create a society, you need to learn how to survive. That is the basic thing. If you don't know how to survive, that's it. Like, there's no point. Like, any sort of future plans you want to have down the line, it's great. But if you don't know how to survive, there's no beginning to the civilization or whatever. So, air, food, water. Cool. Air. Okay. Let's assume that you can breathe. Food. Right. I need food. Now, in all them professions, who's most likely going to provide me with food? And in my head, it's probably going to be the biologist. So I'm going to be like, right, okay. He's as close to a farmer as you're going to get. Yeah, he's as close to an agricultural expert that you're going to get. So
We're talking about Mars without any crops or earth or air or water.
But the way it is, Marius, right?
They're going to have to, yeah.
Just
I
to
agree with you,
clarify
though,
one
by the
thing. Just to clarify one thing. When you choose your three, it's not that you don't really have the other seven. You just have a very rudimentary caveman level of that. So if you don't choose biologist, it doesn't mean you're not eating. It just means you have a very shit level of food.
Yeah, but I've got to prioritize it. That's my priority.
But actually, I think you're probably not eating. If you rock up on Mars, you'll struggle, innit?
Yeah,
but you're bringing shit. But we're just assuming some magical shit sometimes, right? Like bringing rations from Earth and all that.
In my head, like there is. I'm not sitting there turning around and be like, well, okay, cool. Let's prioritize. I don't
Magician.
know. Let's prioritize teaching. Yeah, let's teach what? Like you're gonna die. Like just let's focus on eating food and let's focus on making sure. You got to think. I'm immediately thinking of, like, I don't know, Viking times, or not Viking. That's not when it began. But do you know what? That sort of era. What was important then?
Caveman.
Yeah, caveman times. What was important? Well, what was important was, let's make sure we've got food on the table. Let's make sure we've got places that we can live in. So then my next thing would probably be like a construction expert or some sort of engineer or someone that's good at, like, sort of building something. Yeah, because at the end of the day, shelter is a priority for us. Yeah, we need to make sure that we've got some form of shelter. And the other big thing is healthcare. Yeah, like we need to survive. Do I want my agricultural expert? Do I want my group of people that are that in charge of making me food to be healing people? No, there is two separate jobs. You deal with the food, yeah, and you guys deal with making sure that people are okay. And when we survive, and as the longer we can survive, the longer it can continue.
Marish, but if you have like 100,000 people, right, and you have, like, let's say 30% of them are like biologists, right? Wouldn't that, you can split those like 30,000 people into two groups? One of them deal with like crops, one of them deal with like people that are sick or whatever.
No, like come on, this is food and health. This is 60% of the people's jobs.
But Marish, then from that perspective, so if you have construction experts that can build stuff, you get biologists give you food, and you have doctors that can keep you survival.
Yeah.
What about everyone's mental thing? You know,
okay,
I
cool.
know.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, you're trying to pick 3 professions out of these 10, and if people's mental stabilities are, and it's sometimes sometimes you're just gonna have to take a loss in certain areas.
He's not
or
well.
Sometimes you're gonna have to turn around and be like, right, okay, cool. The doctors, they're gonna have to take that level of responsibility as well. Yeah, they're
but
gonna have
if
to
they don't
look
know how
after
to deal with it.
yeah, but guess what? You're coming
Deal
into a
with it.
Was
civilization of
your third one?
100,000 people. You're coming
I'm
into a
sure.
civilization.
I'm sure if physicists can help with what doctors can do, I'm pretty sure doctors.
But Marish,
can look
is
after some
doctors your
people as
third one?
well.
Oh yeah,
doctors-
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's
okay,
doctors,
cool.
biologists, construction experts. If I was to look at everyone else, I don't know, physicists. Let's
Is
focus
there-
on
okay,
Let's focus
so
on
I've got a
surviving
question.
first. Historians, there's no history here. Don't worry about it. Spiritual leaders, like I think sometimes
Don't
spiritual
worry
leaders
about it.
can take away logic from the equation. Sometimes I think they can follow their dreams or follow. I'm not saying it's like.
But don't you think you need that thing in equation? That was my biggest thing when Alice mentioned. Actually, that wasn't even for you. It was for Alice when she said, "I would rather be led by logical people," right? And I personally, I'm not saying I want to be logical. It's quite funny because I'm just mentioning this because when I went for a walk to grab a beer for this kind of podcast, I was listening to the Power of Now, and he's talking about how back in the day, in initial stages of Earth, most of the leaders were females, okay, because females are way more connected emotionally with everybody, right?
Yeah.
And of course, you see a lot of this female empowerment, movements, okay, and there's loads of articles these days. Like, have you seen this article saying something about it? The countries that had more female, what you call them, like presidents, whatever, in power, they had less people dying from COVID because, and sometimes
Yeah,
they
I've
print
seen
some
the-
crazy shit,
they
and
have
I'm,
better-
by the way, I'm not
they
saying
are
it's
much
right or
more
wrong.
evolved,
I just don't like the idea when sometimes they put because she's female, there's less people died. I think it's a bit crazy, right? But what I'm trying to say that because this connection with people, and I think females, first of all, females give birth, isn't it? And females actually really, I
care
know I
about
have
people
kids.
more.
They care about people more, So, and I think if we're gonna just take pure logic, like logically, was I said like last time, where's the issues even. Again, sorry, I don't want to try to create kind of crazy thing, but logically, people will say, okay, if we can kill 10 people to save 1,000, let's just do it, innit? That's one of the reasons why we're scared of robots these days, isn't it? Because we're scared that artificial intelligence will always take a logical solution, and I think it was Terminator. Was it Terminator? What of the movies was, I think,
iRobot, maybe?
Was it iRobot? Yeah, I think it was
had the three
iRobot. Yeah,
laws.
exactly.
Yeah, it had the three
Yeah, when
laws.
he said like that the robot took, they would rather take a child than a human being because they had like a higher percentage to survive, and if there's the same percentage, they grab a child. So this, because they kind of try to make it logical. But somewhere I believe there is this divine thing, isn't it? Like somewhere there, I believe there's a part where some different people have to emerge, whatever. And most of us have no Scooby-Doo about it. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that spiritual leaders. I'm not talking about religious leaders, by the way, but I think that the people who actually really understand our energies, where we come from, where we're going, what's the purpose of our involvement, I think that those people could replace a lot, but they would actually.
I'll tell you something. I was contemplating spiritual leaders, and the way I was contemplating them was thinking that in caveman times, was there someone within the society that was the person to go to bring the spirit up or to make people believe.
You've seen Vikings, Marish?
Yeah, like in Vikings, like watching the series. Yeah,
You have to have
and there
that,
was,
yeah.
and you did.
And there's always the most respected person, even in very old societies. How come they always respected that one person who was actually?
But Marish, the question is, even though you can go back in history and find all these gurus and town leaders and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Does it mean it's right? And is that the world you're trying to rebuild again? So
my world.
Okay,
cool. The type of world I want to build.
Don't confuse religious leaders with spiritual leaders.
So
sorry.
This is the key, because I heard you say this before. The type of world I would want to build needs to survive first.
100%.
So the world needs to survive to be molded in a certain direction. Pushing a direction that you want the world to go in without understanding the needs of survival, then will just diminish into in the wrong direction very quickly. And if I was to look at religious leaders, I'm sorry, we're in Mars, yeah? We're in Mars, there's one religion. We're 100,000 people. There's one religion. We're all going to support that religion, and we're all going to come together. It's not like back in the days there was like multiple religions for like a community.
I would like to see that actually. If you take 100,000 people, do you reckon there would be? I don't know. I hope it wouldn't, but there's a quite big chance.
Wouldn't
that
people
I'm
will,
still convinced. I'm still
Wouldn't
convinced
people
that
come
out of
with
these
it?
people will bring the fucking religion still there,
exactly.
innit?
Out of 100,000 people, I mean,
People will bring
religion's
their
very-
dollars.
Yeah, 100%. And then try fucking trade them off. But I'm pretty sure out of those 100,000 people, some people would be religious, and then they can start teaching religion onto other people. But just like Myra said, which I said at the start, they're all 10 of them are very, very important. But the three that we chose, there's no point thinking about how it's going to be in 100 years if we're not going to survive one. And I believe without those
so
three,
just
we
on
won't
this-
survive a year.
Psychologists. It's something that got created over time, isn't it? A doctor dealt with all of them problems back in the days, yeah? Now, like, I mean, like, if you compare it to the rest, I understand, like, yeah, there's a need for psychologists in today's day and age. They do a good thing, whatever. Compare it to, like, if you compare it to today's society, I don't know, like...
But I think societies used to be more primitive, you know.
Out of the 10,
Yeah,
it would
true.
look like, I don't know, non-essential retail to me.
But
right
I
now.
agree with you, Maresh, that actually in a simple society, psychologists happened more in more complicated societies with more stress, with more different things. But people didn't have psychologists. They had very primitive life. They just went in there, created food, lived, and it was okay. But they still had a spiritual leader who was able to connect them back to nature or whatever that was, kind of thing, you know.
Okay.
You know, so I agree that psychologists are quite a new thing. You know what I mean?
But
Like
in your view of survival, though, Marish, right? That's not even technically that's not even the question, right? It's not that there's a potential that these 100,000 people will die off on Mars or anything like that. It's the idea is we're recolonizing it, right? So which three of these would you take?
And
That will
100,000
produce
people... Yeah,
that will produce the best future
Of
for
course.
those
And
100,000 people.
The best future is to make sure that the 100,000 people can be sustained and can continue to develop and grow and not become extinct. That is the best future. And in order for that to happen, I have to prioritize at that point survival. And survival would be the way I'd go about it. Yeah, like who would lead?
But
the
in
group?
survival
Who would be-
means people will be killing each other as well to survive themselves. You know, that could turn out into, if you're all very logical and suddenly people be, oh, this guy is, you know, like back in the day used to be, this guy was born with one leg, fuck it, throw him off the fucking rock, he can't survive because he can't move with us. You know what I mean? All these things will happen again.
I
innit?
understand.
So-
Of course. I'm not saying it's a perfect world. I'm saying that it's a world that is. I'm not gonna trade. I'm gonna take that. I'm not gonna not take that risk for food. Like food, I will take the risk for food. Yeah, I will take that risk for healthcare. Yeah, to
That's
make
like a
sure-
biologist.
Now you're up for taking risks. Last week you weren't.
Let me hear your three. Let me hear your.
Actually, yeah, give a shout, give us
Yeah,
your
fish
stuff.
go on.
All right, so I've been listening and I've been thinking as well, and I've tried to kind of keep it to the last minute to choose my three. So I think number one. So again, just like with Marish, I'm going to give a little preface first, which is I'm not talking about. I don't think there's a need for short-term survival. Like I said, the question is more about recolonizing. I don't know, I'm struggling with that word. For the best future, the best thriving future in 100 years' time, in 200 years, in 500 years, etc. So for me, number one has to be physicists, right? This is a brand new world. And these are the people that have the best understanding of that environment, right? So all the biology stuff, you know, remember, if you even look at the film Martian, the guy was a biologist, but had to be studied in physics as well to even be an astronaut and go in space. And that was also, you know, a lot to do with his survival as well. So there's nothing that, of those other professions, they don't really work that much without someone there, I believe anyway, teaching you, explaining how this new environment works, and consistently, and you know, finding, you know, different things, and you know, discovering new things, and inventing new things about how we're actually going to live on that new planet for thousands and thousands of years, right? Whether it be the oxygen thing, whether it be the gravity thing, whether it be what grows here, what happens, what's the weather patterns like, what's a day? What's a day? You know, what's the time? What's a month now? What's a week now? What's a year now? You know, what does it mean? That, are we rotating at the same speed as the Earth did, or what? You know, all these types of things that I can't even think of right now. So for me, physicist is number one, right? Number two is something that has my next two, actually no one's mentioned them. I'm going to go with historians. And the reason I'm going with historians is because of the long-term survival. So Marius, you were focusing on short-term. I'm fully focusing on long-term survival. Again, hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. The long-term survival of those people, right? Historians know what happened in the past. They're the ones that can extrapolate that data, learn from it, and help decide the direction that we're going on again in the future. Without people who know the past, I believe, left to a group of 100,000 humans, they will make the same mistake again and again and again and again and again, right? And let's not forget why we're on this planet in the first place. It was most likely human decisions over a long period of time and human error that has caused the world we currently live in to not be there anymore, and that's why we recolonize Mars. So, Marius, we'll get to that in a second. The last one, though, is the fun one, is I would choose politicians, right?
I knew you would.
Yeah, I would choose politicians. And here's why I would choose politicians. Now, that word in itself comes with so many negative connotations and negative stereotypes, and I understand that. But I'm not talking about...
Sunak.
Yeah, well, yeah. I'm not talking about that element of it. I'm not talking about particular politicians that people like, people don't like, and, you know, all this type of stuff. What I believe a politician has is two skills that these other 10 don't have, right? Number one is... the ability to lead large groups of people and create policies and laws and things like that, right? Number two is to make decisions for the greater good, which is in general why politicians on this world don't get liked as much, if that makes sense. The average human being, and these 100,000 people are average human beings, and we know this, they want everything and they want it now. A politician, a current politician, and again, I'm not defending any party or any particular politician, we're not going that deep into it, they can't operate like that. They can't make decisions that grant instant gratification. They have to be able to, like Alice said, separate a little bit of logic and emotion and make decisions for the long-term greater good of people. So, as I prefaced it with, this is for the long-term survival, these are the guys that can make the decisions when other people can't. And that's my point on that. Also, let's not forget, the average human is resistant to long-term decisions.
So let me just ask you a question. 100,000 people, how many politicians are you bringing in?
You can't ask me that because then it's the same amount for each of the three professions. It doesn't really matter.
But the point I'm trying to get is 100,000 people, realistically, you want to choose a job that is going to be the job that is going to be done by the most amount of people. Agreed?
Say
to
that
be
again?
the most efficient. You want people to take on roles that the majority of people can do. So it's most efficient.
I think
Putting
you
like
take
5
100,000
politicians or 10 politicians, yeah.
You take 100,000
It's a
people
waste of a
without
position, isn't it?
I mean, without again, not that it should be too many laws and shit like that, but without too many rules and laws, it could descend into chaos. Especially on your line of survival, instant survival.
But does that have to be done by the politicians? Could we not have in the 3 groups of people that you pick, yeah, people that have shown certain leadership skills, they form a mini government
what
together.
I thought as well.
Yeah,
100%.
That's when it comes to. But that's when it comes to the skill. That's when it comes to the skill of
a doctor could be a great position. The problem.
But this is what I'm saying.
Most politicians don't have a political degree in it. They come from loads of different, backgrounds and stuff like that.
But this is what I'm saying is the skill of a politician is more than a doctor. Anyone can lead, but they have the ability to make.
But
they have the ability to make a long-term decision.
You're not going to risk that for food. You're not going to risk that for healthcare. Come on, you're not going to risk that for for a group of people that are going to put roofs over your head. You're not going to be like, right, okay, cool. Give me a bunch of Rishi Sunaks for I don't know, let's risk all our houses so we can have a bunch of people that can... It's not
a risk, but you're risking life then as well in that same moment.
No, but I agree with Marius on the bit that actually, if you will take politician, what did you say before? Sorry, what was your pick? Historian and politician and
a physicist.
And physicist, right? So we are obviously losing out on biologists, which means there is no doctors or biologists, nobody who physically understands a human being.
It's not that there's no food. Like I said, everything else just happens at a very rudimentally basic level.
So I've just seen Joe's comment. Vish is gonna bless us with Boris on.
So this is what I mean, right? So I'm not saying anything about current politicians or anything like that. What I mean is just that the person that has the ability to make.
But spiritual
long-term
leaders
decisions
have
for
an
the greater
ability.
good.
Okay, Vishal, what about spiritual leaders? Let's say, again, let's not get into religion. I don't even know how, it's very hard to come off the religion because every time you talk about spiritual, you have the religion. But let's just pretend, I know this is really, really harsh, right?
Yes,
and by the
please.
way, I'm not really Christian, so I might say something really wrong. Whoever is a Christian, because I don't really know that much about Jesus, and everyone's laughing at mentioning him, right? But let's say there was a spiritual leader like Jesus, right? Only with very small amount of things I know about him, right? Who's teaching people to love and take care, understand stuff. Why would I need a politician if everyone really takes care of each other, understands stuff? And especially,
That's completely fine. It's just about what world you want to build. Does that make sense?
well, I would like to build from my perspective, maybe I'm not defending myself. If I have a physicist that understands the laws of basic nature, gravity, mechanics, and energy, if I have biologist that understands anything to do with the living things, which is my body and bodies of humans and animals and plants, and I have a spiritual leader that understands my energies and my sort of maybe why my psychology responds to certain things, I think biologists will take care of my survival from food and, as a physical being. Physicists take care of all the stuff like building, construction, and energy.
Mindy, do you remember what I said right at the start? Actually, before for the guys who are listening, before we even started, I said let's all assume, guys, that these 10 professions are operating on a very light level, and they all are capable of succeeding in their role that they do. So,
okay, so
what
I'm just
politician
thinking
is able to do is create a little bit of not discipline, but create order.
I know.
Sense, right?
Yeah, but
create order.
What I'm saying is prioritizing.
So where is your
would you
order?
prioritize that? Would you prioritize
I would.
over?
where's my order? The order will come from spiritual leader that actually teaches people or helping people to stay sane and grounded and taking care of each other.
We all knew Minde was going to go spiritually.
No, but I'm thinking when you really okay with yourself and okay with other people, maybe you don't need someone to tell you go and do this, because deep down we already understand that stuff anyway. If that makes sense. Like we only need to be told what to do.
Do you think it would create order? But when I say order, I mean not that people are prisoners or anything like that or robots, but order in the sense that would create the best environment for growth, for hundreds and hundreds of years of growth.
If my body is okay with biologists and there's food and there's parks and we understand what's happening in our bodies, and if physicists can teach, and especially what Myrish mentioned before when he said like how many of them you would take. So I know it's not the rules, but I'm thinking that if it's 30 like percentage wise, right? So if 1/3 of those people are like sort of fairly spiritual, who are with good hearts and taking care of shit, I think that's a lot of people. If 1/3 of them really understand biology, so they can really understand that shit, and 1/3 of them are physicists who can build and create shit, I'm like, fucking, I think it's a great society.
I don't know, Minde, because you got to remember these spiritual people. We're not saying like a third of them are going to be spiritual. We're saying a third of them are going to be spiritual leaders. Yeah. That's going to cause a lot of conflict.
Nah, but
that's going to cause a lot of problems.
I think you're talking about religious leaders, isn't it? I mean,
I don't know. It says spiritual leaders, isn't it?
Yeah, so, when you say spiritual leader, I think most spiritual leaders are, in most cases don't even try to lead in a sense. They
I
think anything. I think it doesn't matter what it says.
1 second, let Alice go. Let Alice go.
Oh, no,
She's waiting
yeah.
for a while.
Okay, let's go, guys.
Okay, Marish, you go. Marish, you go.
So I think
I'm on mute.
anything that has the word. Sorry, I'll give it to you in a sec, Alice. Yeah, anything that has the word leader in it shouldn't be there. Anything.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. Religious leader. If you're
But
going to have a bunch of people that are all classed as leaders, yeah, it's not going to work. You need.
But
Yeah,
you-
but I think
okay,
the-
so the
for
natural
spiritual
human-
leaders, we are the ones attaching that word leader kind of thing. If you look at like,
Peter, you're on mute, by the way. I know you want to add something, but you've been on mute for a while.
spiritual leaders are people that follow, like Mahatma Gandhi, or let's say even the Dalai Lama or Eckhart Tolle. They don't go around follow me. They just do their own shit if you want.
Also, you want to have a lot of them because there will be a lot of little small groups of people that need that leader. So it's not like going to be one like 30,000 people talking to each other trying to lead. They'll be like, you lead these guys, you help these guys. You're just responsible for different types of groups.
Have you guys seen The Walking Dead? Man,
No.
leaders will just come from where they need to come from.
That's what
There
I
we
was
go.
going to say, Reese, right? So when you say no leaders, Marius, right? Do you understand that the natural human instinct will be to elect someone and don't think of the
Of
voting
course.
shit.
It would,
Of
it would,
course.
it would
Someone
happen,
will
yeah.
rise. Someone
of
will
course.
rise. Or
Just to
someone
make the
will rise.
decision,
Within the
yeah.
communities that you pick, within the communities that you pick, yeah, they will nominate a group of people or person to lead them. Yeah, like if you're gonna say all these leaders, you may as well say king.
But without
Like,
someone
let's
there
have a
with
king.
the long-term vision
Or queen. Sorry.
of where we're going, and this is the direction, this is the plan. That's what I'm saying is the reason for a politician who can make that shit and make those long-term decisions that make that happen.
Think about this. Yeah, if you go back into caveman days, or you can't go back into any olden day civilization, how did they live their life? They woke up they're in their houses, which have been built, or like huts or whatever it is.
Without construction experts.
Because they all knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all
but
knew that.
obviously there was a group of people that were in charge of building stuff, which construction experts would have been in. Yeah, so there was a group of people that were building stuff, and there was a group of people that were farmers that were just growing stuff, and that was everyone's role. That's what everyone did.
But then there was an
either building
army,
or
and
growing.
they had to defend
Or-
themselves. They had
or
the chief.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
course.
And they did
Gatherers and stuff like that.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
so
of course.
I've got a question for all of you guys, right? So just again, very short one. Is there something not on this list that you would have preferred to have taken over
Farmer.
one of the three you took?
Barman.
The barman.
No, but Miles, why do you need farm if you're a biologist? I think
No, but
biologists.
it's
I
like
would
a
have
farmer would be
taken
better
an
than a biologist.
IT.
Do you know what I mean?
No,
Yeah.
but I think some farmers understand that much.
IT person.
Barmans are like
Where
chemists
all the
anyway.
IT people.
Physicists,
on Mars,
Alice,
Alice.
and engineers and physicists will be IT. They'll be
I've
cool.
got one for you, Vish, that no one has said so far. Where the fuck is the astronaut?
IT.
Yeah.
I would
So
take some.
astronaut. So
How-
as far
how are
as
we even
I
getting to
understand.
Mars?
So as far as I
Alice
understand,
wanted to say something. Alice wanted to say something. Come on, we still keep on cutting her.
Alice, get off mute. Okay, now click once only.
And just
Alice?
leave it off mute.
it's because it's delayed a bit. There's a bit of lag.
Yeah.
But go on, Alice.
Yeah,
Go.
that's fine.
You're good now.
Yeah,
Go
I
for it.
said IT. IT. I would take some IT people. For sure.
But that's
Okay, so
physicists.
You
how
won't
about
have
this?
any mains. You won't have
How-
any
how-
plug points.
Okay, if I could offer you this profession, then right, would you take it? And this is for all five of you. Some sort of tribesman. You know the ones that Minda was talking about last week. You know on the Andaman
When you
Islands.
start
the
with
ones
some
that-
sort of.
Yeah.
What the hell was I talking last week?
So you know on the Andaman Islands, these civilizations that haven't been touched by modern society. You know?
Okay, yeah,
Or
yeah, uh-huh.
so they're like one with the earth that they live in. They've got extremely great nature skills and how to live from almost nothing, basically. Whether it be a
called
Native
hunters.
American, where the skills are being passed down, or whether it be someone from an Amazonian rainforest or Andaman Islands. Would you take someone like that who just has this ability to live from nothing, from the world that they live in and the resources that they have?
Yeah, but look, if you're saying it that
would
way,
you take
but
that?
now you're going to a different world, so
I don't know.
they don't know
100,000
nothing
people-
about the world.
100,000 people. I
But
would
that's the
probably
point.
say-
They'll probably pick it up quicker than us. We're used to sofas. We're used to TVs. We're used
Would you
to
have to swap
luxuries,
one out for that person?
Western luxuries. Oh yeah.
I don't
Bear
know.
Grylls. We take Bear Grylls.
If I was to go down
But
your
Bear
angle,
Grylls, okay,
Vish,
there's no
yeah?
Amazon forest there, there's no water. Everything what he knows how to survive, you know, he knows which kind of things to eat.
bug to
Those
eat,
things
yeah.
don't exist in it. He knows how to swim. There's nowhere to swim. You know, there's gonna be very different. innit?
Agriculture from
If I
Joe.
was, if I was to go down your view, Vish, of politicians, then like even if a politician said this is the way that it needs to happen, or we need to do things like this, you still need people to follow it, agree to it, and appreciate the decision that's been made. But that's never going to happen without some sort of, I don't know, police force or government or people that can put discipline to the society. The politicians not going to put discipline. They're just going to give their viewpoint. But you need someone to be able to
Yeah, when
control
people
it,
like
or-
step aside, yeah.
do you know what I mean? You're not going to have Boris going in and like arresting people or whatever.
Okay,
it is,
so
yeah?
so would
from
you
my
guys?
from my
Go on,
perspective,
go on,
Michelle, just 1 second. That politicians back in the day, like you know, I studied political science, right? Most politicians that actually are in
Warriors,
governments, or
probably.
most of the governments, did not study political science because political science back in the day was more like philosophy. Because you know, when you look back into Greece and stuff like that, people were thinking of what type of society would be the best way for people to live. Most politicians today don't even have those type of big goals, and they're just dealing with kind of month to month, you know, like what's happening, half of them nicking some shit, you know, trying to make some cash on the way, you know what I mean? There's not really, you know, when you look at...
Minde, that's the type of politician I'm talking about. The
Yeah,
good one.
but we're talking about
The
pretty
good
much
one.
philosophers like Socrates and whatever, you know, those people who are actually thinking, how can we organize society in the best way, you know what I mean? So, you know,
that's my point,
I don't
yeah.
know.
That'd be a good topic for another week. Like who, like out of like all those leaders and like famous people in history, who would you take? Like 2 or 3 people. That'd be really good as well.
So I've got a question for you guys. Regardless of the 3 that you took, okay, from the 100,000 people that you got, would you create some sort of, would you create a discipline system where there's police and jails and punishments?
You're gonna have to. Yeah.
You will have to.
People will get angry, man.
Even if you
People
don't,
would you
even
straight
if you
away?
don't select it, it will happen over a period of time.
So Vishal, can you say it again? My kids were screaming here.
So
What was it?
regardless of the 3 professions you took, Minde, from the 100,000 people, would you create some sort of police and jail system and repercussion system?
I personally would not create necessarily what it is, a jail system right now.
A repercussion system, shall we say? In a
Like,
nice
I don't
way.
like the word repercussion. I think the most issues with repercussion system, maybe there should be something, you know, mostly to protect. I think jail system in general is to protect society from criminals, right? So if a criminal creates crime, you take him away to protect so he wouldn't commit the same crime. So if someone actually killed somebody, and if you won't take him away, he might kill again, right? So it's not fair on innocent people to die because someone's gone nuts a bit, right? But I think that system of repercussion generally puts a blame on that particular person, right? And I know, as far as I agree that we all have responsibility for our actions, at the same time as I agree that about 50% of our actions are based on our environment, right? So if you look at a lot of people who, let's say, maybe criminals, right? They probably had a lot of pain in their childhood, whatever. There was a reason why they end up making those choices, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So, like, yeah, I think there has to be some sort of system, but like a rehabilitation system. Or I believe, again, this is not me, again, going a bit nuts in here, but spiritual leaders. Or if you really understood yourself, okay, why you have anger, why you're trying to revenge, why you're trying to hurt somebody, right? If you understood the process of how your emotions going through, there probably would be less of actual anger and crime in the first place. And
So
I think
Peter, we've had a comment from Peter Curtin, and he says you would have to have some sort of order and rules to follow, otherwise there would be anarchy, right?
Of course,
so
of
that's
course.
that's also
That's
one of
true.
the lines I'm coming down with the politicians. So Reese, I want to follow on from that question.
Not gonna
You
do
don't
anything
need. You
about
don't
it.
need politicians. You don't need politicians.
You're
to do it,
talking about the
you can do it
enforcer. I'm
yourself.
talking- So Reese, I've got a question for you, right? So in this a very specific question now, right? In your world, someone has murdered someone else. What is the repercussion for that person?
It's a very, very good question. I mean, again, I totally agree with what Peter says, that there would be anarchy if there was no kind of
Just get his head
repercussion
off.
system of what you
So
said.
let's assume you do have a police force with some sort of jail, repercussion, legal system, I don't know, punishments, whatever the fuck you want to call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing with someone who's murdered someone?
General ruling, it'd be something.
Is there a court system? Is
a court system?
Is there, I saw him do it, so he did it?
It's kind of recolonizing Mars, isn't it? So it basically is restarting over. So again, because there would be no court system or
What's
again,
your punishment, Reese? Are you chucking him out into outer space?
I'm
What's
not
going
chucking
on?
him out to outer space, no, because I wouldn't.
Go to
I wouldn't.
Venus.
Yeah, sorry, mate, but
Go to
like
Venus.
Australia back in the day, you know? Send them off the island, kill each other.
Neptune's waiting for you. That's
You
fine.
go back to Earth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, again, look, we don't have judges for any kind of court system. So then, who would judge these people to decide the fate on them? I don't know, because there's no judges. But do I believe?
I'm asking you right now, Reese. What's
Yeah.
the punishment? Are you building some sort of metal hut and they get hot or some shit? I don't know what.
Answer the
Wow.
question, Reese.
I
the question, Reese.
I
That
agree
is true.
with some sort of.
You're
repercussion
gonna be
or
great
some sort of
politician,
punishment,
Reese.
Yes.
It's good
Yes.
you agree with some sort of repercussion for murder.
Fuck, you couldn't
a
sue
start.
him, innit?
Yeah.
All right, we'll come back. Marius,
But the
what's your
repercussion,
repercussion?
I don't know.
Someone's
Repercussion
murdered.
again.
Someone's murdered.
Okay, so like I said, there would be a group of people that would be the decision makers, or the people that would be the kind of government, and it would be regular workers of different fields that have been elected by the group to make the decisions, and they would come together and they would turn around and assess what the
Sounds like Lord of the Flies.
Sounds like a jury duty. I think I agree, because it'll be different people, you know,
It'll
and
be
they just
different people
decide.
coming together, and they'll say, right, this is what we think, and it'll be elected vote.
But this is you're talking about the process of how they get to the decision. I'm asking you, in
What is
your
the
world, what is the repercussion? I don't care how you
some
get
sort
to
of
it.
isolation or seclusion, or like they go into an
Secluded
area
place.
that they can't escape from, and they get protected there, or some sort of jail form.
It's a very long way
inside.
of saying jail.
Yeah,
I think-
well, I don't know. It's not exactly a jail.
Which
there
wouldn't
should
be able
be
to
actually-
be built
It
without
might
the
be like
construction
I don't know,
workers.
like a red liquid pool in Mars. I don't know, like whatever it is. Yeah.
How about? I mean, 100,000 people on the size of a planet of Mars will only take a very small section, right?
Yep.
So would you banish them from the society that you're trying to build,
Most
rather
likely.
than keep them within the society but behind locked walls?
No,
Would you just say you're not part of our thing? Fuck off.
But would you not want to find out the reasons what happened in the
think-
first
I
place?
100%, exactly. Yeah, I would
Because-
No,
banish them.
this is
Imagine-
this is okay.
Yeah.
Imagine
I
there was a
think
child,
because-
okay, who was abused, or his dad abused his mom and beat him up, whatever. He was traumatized as a child. He has like some psychological issues. Now, there's no psychologists in there, as you understand. Obviously, you guys didn't take any spiritual leaders in there. All we have is biologists, doctors, and politicians. No
We'll
one
throw
can deal with this
potatoes at
kid.
him. That's
This
it.
this kid is freaking out in his head right now. You know what I mean? And someone kisses his girlfriend, he goes and actually loves the guy, right? And he has nowhere to go. And then actually they throw him off the island. Okay, that's not fair. The guy.
Yeah, but that's how it was back in the days. A lot of people.
It was,
used to have
yeah,
banishment
it was.
They used to
of
throw
kingdoms.
potatoes and tomatoes
And
at
see what-
people, which
see
you
what
can't
it
do
led
with
to.
biologists.
And see where it led us to.
If I
But
Going to a
Marish,
different
okay,
planet.
So aside from that, right? So Marish, in your world, there's such a core focus on instant, like, present moment survival, which could breed theft,
Yes.
murder. You know, so someone has murdered or stolen for the reason of survival. Let's say.
See,
You know-
Vishal's world, Myresh, is more like long term, you know, politicians and stuff like that. He thinks of a long term stuff, but yours is very short term, and I think it's going to create theft and violence. I agree with Vishal. I like this kind of swing in there, you know.
No, okay. Look, let's be honest.
Who's gonna run?
There's
Who's gonna run your
long-
your world,
long-term-
Vish?
long-term society when everyone's going to die is pointless, isn't it? So let's just focus on everyone surviving.
You know
If
what, I
100,000
remember- I'm gonna-
If 100,000 next year is going to be 50,000, and the year after is going to be 20,000, then it's pointless.
We're gonna get to the side.
Okay,
We're gonna
can
get to
I
the
ask
side.
a
where we
random
survive.
question?
Long-term society will be me and you, Vish, just sat there.
Okay,
No, we'll be playing Tekken if it's just me and you, don't
Okay, can I ask everybody a question? Okay, would you sacrifice a certain amount of people to save large amount of people?
That's a whole
Yes.
other topic, Mendo.
Yeah,
Yes, 100%.
I would.
But yes,
What
And that's what I mean. I tried to say it in a nice way. That's what I meant by having a politician there and making decisions
Yeah.
for the greater good of long term.
And
But I
that's
don't
why
have to be a
don't
politician to do it, though.
Yeah.
Because then we say that quantity is more important, okay? And I'm not saying quality, because quality means actually we are measuring people to some degree. But I think then it just, for me, I'm accepting that there is a path which I don't understand. I'm trying to understand, you know what I mean? So, and I don't think that we can make
Well,
it that
before
way, you know?
before I make any decisions, I would always ask the spiritual leaders because they probably know anyway. So
Yeah, I know,
what
because
happens-
in
what
my and
happens-
your planet,
I don't
Peter,
know.
we have spiritual leaders, which will be,
Do you know what I mean?
we're gonna be okay.
I would think if somebody like you or somebody, I would probably like, I don't know, ask them, what should we do with these guys? And they were like,
But that's okay. Let him heal himself.
yeah, do you
know?
know what? They're probably gonna like, I would imagine they will do that. They were like, okay, let's just send them somewhere far away, with maybe like a couple of, you know, one spiritual leader like to look after like 2 or 3 of those, and we like give them a farm, and they have to like do something productive to redeem themselves, and then they're not allowed back.
But
to
that's what I'm
redeem
saying. You
themselves.
see, when you say about redeeming yourself, we are always assuming that people
Or
committing
fixing
the crime,
yourself, fixing yourself, fixing the
Yeah,
whatever,
but that's what I'm saying. Again, I
whatever you
agree,
wanna call it.
agree. Because when you say fixing means that they were broken, or redeeming, which means they done something wrong. But in a lot of cases, a lot of those people were in a really, really, really messed up situations
when
in the
you
first
say-
place.
When you say they need to fix themselves or need to heal, that means that they are sick now, which is the same thing. It's just different
No,
words.
I was just
anyway.
joking what spiritual leader would have said, you know. I'm just
All
saying
right,
that a
guys,
lot of
I'm gonna call it there because Alice
Alice
is
is
already
gone already.
on her way to Mars and thing. Of course, the idea is that there's no right answer to this. It's just about, I suppose, what type of world you want to build. We've had some interesting comments. You know, a lot of people saying different things, agreeing, disagreeing. I think we had Joe Gallagher talking about agriculture is important as well, which again kind of ties in with the farmer thing or the biology thing. But please, guys, let us know in the comments which 3 you would take. Let us know why you would take them. If there's anything outside the 10 that you would take, which ones you would definitely not take. But yeah, thanks for listening. Stay tuned for episode 8 next week. Have a good one. Follow all our Instagrams, which will be also in the description below. Have a good night. See you later. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
bye, bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.